Life's pretty hard for video game NPCs. The lucky ones get to stumble around the same old town or city day after day, reciting bespoke dialogue to passers-by, while the unlucky ones get brutally murdered, either by the player in self-defense or for shits and giggles, or when the bad guy needs to show how capital E evil they really are. When it comes to these kind of things, video game characters have, well, eclectic tastes. And so, we must have a list to celebrate that. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are the 10 craziest cults and religions in video games. Number 10. Church of the Watar, Metro Exodus. Metro Exodus's regal-sounding Church of the Watar are a group of post-apocalyptic cultists who decided that the best way to see out the end of days is by worshipping a colossal mutated fish that keeps trying to eat them. Unfortunately, the Watar really doesn't live up to the theological hype. The creature is certainly big by any sea animal standards, but as the vicar said to the nun, "I've seen bigger." It may be large for a fish, but it's definitely not the biggest aquatic animal on the planet. Hell, if its worshippers ever laid eyes on a whale, they would likely shit themselves in religious terror. However, if the Watar itself disappoints, then the same cannot be said for the iconography its adherents crafted for the beast. As you can probably see on screen right now, the Church of the Watar's logo is a masterpiece of quasi-religious bollocks. Roughly etched symbol? Check. Illuminati eye? Check. Random numbers and letters? Check and check. There's even some crowns thrown in, just to cap off the whole thing. While the church's god may be a disappointment, their iconographer deserves whatever passes for a raise in post-apocalyptic society. Number 9. Church of the Children of Atom, Fallout series. While the Church of the Watar may have devoted its interest to the mutated offspring of an irradiated world, Fallout's Church of the Children of the Atom is more concerned by the means in which said world became irradiated in the first place. Or as someone who hasn't graduated with an arts degree might put it, this religion worships nukes. Honestly, we can see why some people would choose to worship nuclear weapons, especially in the world of Fallout where nuclear war essentially ended civilization, which then caused humanity to have to rebuild from the ashes. Given that level of practically divine wrath, it's easy to see why fearful idolaters would revere Oppenheimer's Destroyer of Worlds. Appropriately enough, the Church of the Children of the Atom encourages its followers to split from one another. Different sects view nuclear bombs in different ways. Some see them as bringers of the divide, where a new world will be born in a blaze of nuclear fire, while others just see them as the ultimate way to wipe out heretics and unbelievers. Either way, if you prefer your world to suffer as little nuclear immolation as possible, you probably want to give these guys a miss. Number 8. The First Church of Lchak, Escape from Monkey Island. Of all the religions on this list, the First Church of Lchak is arguably the least successful, consisting, as it does, of one single priest who is dead. For most people, religion's something you get into before you die, but things worked out rather differently for Allegro Rasputin. After his death at the hands of Monkey Island's most famous villain, the demon ghost zombie pirate Lchak, Allegro began to worship the creature who ended his life and created the First Church of Lchak to celebrate his murderer. Naturally, Father Allegro's religion has very few takers. As well as being dedicated to the most feared pirate of the Caribbean, the posthumous padre made the questionable decision to not only build the church on a remote island, but also on top of an active volcano. Not only that, those married under the Church of Lchak are expected to celebrate their nuptials by taking a fatal log ride right into the heart of the volcano. That way, they can spend their entire afterlives together, as opposed to just their mere mortal lifespans. Given that life after death is a demonstrable occurrence in the Monkey Island games, we'd imagine their inhabitants would probably prefer to spend a few mortal years living monogamously before spreading their wings for all eternity in the afterlife. Number 7. The Church of Yevon, Final Fantasy X. Anytime you see a religion in a JRPG, you can be sure of two things. Number 1, they will be responsible for everything wrong in the world. And number 2, you're definitely gonna end up fighting their god. Final Final Fantasy X adheres to this time-honored tradition with the Church of Yevon, an evil religion whose followers are tasked with killing a giant immortal whale named Sin, who's been terrorizing their world for 1,000 years. One of the more grounded Final Fantasy storylines then. The Church doesn't make it easy for its followers either, as it bans the use of technology. Their argument is that sin is society's punishment for embracing technology centuries ago, and that only through faith can mankind be redeemed. Which turns out to be a load of codswallop, as the Church's god, Yevon himself, was the one who created sin years ago, and is now an insane immortal wizard trapped in a cycle of perpetually summoning his greatest mistake. Naturally, the Church of Yevon goes to great lengths to cover that up. After all, if people gifted you unlimited power and money to make a problem go away, what reason do you ever have to provide a solution? Number 6. The Dark Brotherhood, the Elder Scrolls series. Who doesn't love the Dark Brotherhood? As well as providing the best side quests of every Elder Scrolls game they appear in, they also hold some of the series' best characters. Admit it, we all loved Lchak back in the day. Granted, said characters are ruthless assassins for hire who worship a serial killer turned goddess, but hey, we've all got our flaws. Even by the standards of Elder Scrolls' most misanthropic gods, this is a series that has a god of schemes, destruction, and pestilence. The Dark Brotherhood's Night Mother is really in a league of her own. According to Dark Brotherhood scripture, the Night Mother was a kindly-looking, rosy-cheeked old woman who used her appearance to great effect in her line of work as an assassin. Sithis, god of the void, apparently saw the Night Mother about her work one day, liked the cut of her jib, and wound up having 5 children with her. Being something of a control freak, Sithis promptly ordered the Night Mother to kill the children to prove her loyalty to him. Presumably not wanting to spoil the honeymoon, she did as her infernal groom asked and slaughtered the children without hesitation. Doing so won her Sithis' eternal admiration, and she now exists as an immortal spirit who tells the Dark Brotherhood who to murder. Okay, so yeah, joining the Dark Brotherhood does technically bind you to the whims of an infanticidal ghoul who's married to the world's most misanthropic god, but hey, it's cold out in Skyrim and those black leather robes look awfully warm. Color of night sanguine after all. Number 5. The Church of Martel, Tales of Symphonia. Another entry in the evil JRPG religion canon, the Church of Martel is what happens when you combine an immortal lifespan with a psychotic level of determination. The Church of Martel was an all-powerful, millennia-old religion founded by one Mythos Yggdrasil, who created the church in honor of his deceased sister, Martel. Something that must have made him insufferably smug at support group meetings. Oh, you made a donation to charity in your dead brother's name? I mean, okay, when my sibling died, I created a global religion that dictated the course of society over thousands of years, but you do you. Naturally, Mythos had sinister intentions under his seeming benevolence. The church turned out to be a millennia-long science experiment designed to do 2 things: stop discrimination by turning everyone into mindless monsters that resembled swollen purple cacti, and to create a suitable vessel for Martel's soul through 4,000 years of selective breeding. Sadly for Mythos, his planning came to nothing. After 4 millennia of treating the people of the world as disposable lab rats, a newly revived Martel was understandably horrified at what Mythos did in her name. Martel called her brother out as the psychopath he was, leaving him utterly broken and defeated. If only all gods could be so proactive in chastising those who commit evil in their name. Number 4. The Founders, BioShock Infinite. If you've had any exposure to them by playing the game, then you probably know the Founders are pretty damn fond of America. Unfortunately, their admiration for their country doesn't just stop at building heavily idealized statues of the nation's founding fathers. The Founders' leader, Zachary Comstock, preaches the type of heavily quotation-marked national pride that inspires nationalism, xenophobia, and zealous wrath against non-believers. The Founders are the most deeply unpleasant religion on this list, as racism is etched into their very belief system. One of the things the player is asked to do is stone an interracial couple, although thankfully you're given the option of throwing the projectile into the faces of the smug bastard telling you to do it. And it all goes downhill from there. Zachary Comstock himself is an example of what happens when great power falls into the wrong hands, and he uses his daughter's ability to open rifts in the space-time continuum to purloin technology from the future, set himself up as a prophet, and create the floating city of Columbia, a technologically advanced nation-state with a medieval mentality. Given all of the above, it's massively cathartic when the player finally gets to catch up with Comstock himself. Then you can show him exactly what you think of his doctrine. Number 3. Brotherhood of Nod, Command and Conquer series. The Brotherhood of Nod are a religious movement that act as the prime antagonists in the famed Command and Conquer series. Although their motives are pretty nebulous throughout most of the series, Command and Conquer 4 finally revealed their purpose: to send their leader Cain back to his home planet. Yes, it turns out that Cain, a man as immensely charismatic as he is follically challenged, was an alien all along and created the Brotherhood of Nod as a means to gather the resources necessary to return to his homeworld. Granted, he started several world wars and an alien invasion along the way, but homesickness will do that to you. Amazingly enough, Cain proves to be one of gaming's few trustworthy religious leaders. Unquestionably evil, sure, but in Command and Conquer 4, he makes good on his promise to his followers and allows them to ascend. That is, return to his home planet alongside him. Having said that, it's safe to assume normal humans would have a tad more difficulty adjusting to Cain's homeworld than he did to Earth's, what with him being a superpowered shapeshifter and all. But even if his followers did end up poisoned, barbecued, or irradiated in a hostile alien environment, no one can say he didn't technically deliver on his promise. Number 2. Los Iluminados, Resident Evil 4. Los Iluminados, because every religion should come with a free exploding head parasite. No, really, that seems to be this guy's entire creed. Come for the promise of eternal life, stay because the parasitic life forms we attach to your central nervous system compel you to do our bidding. As religious schemes go, it's a remarkably effective one, as the residents of Resident Evil 4's rural community found to their cost. Resident Evil 4 and its recent remake tasked the player with infiltrating Valdiabolos. Sorry if I said that wrong. Sadly for the area's residents, their isolation made them perfect fodder for cult leader Osmond Saddler's experiments as he implanted his followers with Las Plagas, the aforementioned head-exploding brainwashing parasites. To be fair to Saddler, Los Iluminados does make good on its promise of a life after death. It's just that said afterlife involves a parasite bursting out of your neck and attempting to decapitate everyone around you with razor-sharp tentacles. If nothing else, it will require a drastic rewrite of your Tinder profile. Now, you might think it's bad enough that an entire village fell for a religion involving parasitic tentacle monsters, but wait on for our next and final entry. Number 1. Unitology, Dead Space series. Yes, it's Unitology, the poster child of lunatic religions everywhere, and the permanent poser of the question, how did this gain even a single follower, let alone become, now we must put this in italics, the most predominant religion on the planet? Unitology, with its rigid hierarchy and insistence on believers paying tithes, is a none too subtle take on Scientology. But while Scientology does also preach the belief of alien life forms, at least it doesn't tell its followers, by the way, if said life forms want to burrow into your skull and turn you into a slavering monster, do let them. Or maybe it does. I don't know. Let's not look into it. Amazingly, when the events of the first Dead Space objectively prove Unitology is crazy at best and overtly evil at worst, the religion still gains traction. Even when the marker, the Unitologist idol of choice, turns everyone around it into ravenous zombies, Unitologists still cling to their beliefs. Hell, some followers even decide to take measures to make it easier for their parasitic masters to enter their body. The moral of the story? If your religion revolves around turning yourself and loved ones into alien space zombies, maybe consider becoming an apostate.